So, welcome everyone to Poetry Sunday. And today we're going to take a look at Psalm 104 in the good book, Brethren, or Sistren, I guess I should say.
Fellow travelers.
Fellow travelers, I'll go with that.
104. Okay,
Yeah.
where am
So,
I?
so, so page 104 in The Enlightened Heart, Stephen Mitchell. So, this is Stephen Mitchell's translation, which, as we've seen in our previous couple of Sundays, his translations are sometimes rather liberal, rather expansive, but he does a good job of kind of tapping into the
Uh-huh.
transcendental value, the sublime essence of the Psalms,
Yeah.
and not getting caught up in um, uh, the the more kind of limited or limiting dimension of them. So let's just read this once through, uh, and you may feel like
Page 104.
page 104.
That doesn't say.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, no, no. Psalm 104. It's on page 8. So sorry.
Oh.
Right you are. Psalm 104, page 8.
Are you putting it up on the screen?
I am not, because I don't have the Stephen Mitchell translation on the screen.
Okay.
The ones I've been putting up on the screen in previous Sundays have been King James Version. If you go to, by the way, BibleGateway.com is a really good website. BibleGateway.com. You can put in any line, chapter, verse from any part of the Old or New Testament, and then choose from a menu of dozens of. I mean, you can't believe how many translations there are.
Bible,
Yeah,
Bible
of the Bible Gateway,
Gateway.
BibleGateway.com. But they don't have the Stephen Mitchell, because Stephen Mitchell is, he's a working poet. This is proprietary stuff. He's still getting royalties, as well he should. So just let it wash over your ears. Might be better to not be burdening your eyeballs with the text, and you just let it wash over your ears, and then we'll go back through and 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 start looking more closely at some of the lines. So this
Thank
is
you.
Psalm 104. Unnamable God, you are fathomless. I praise you with endless awe. You are wrapped in light like a cloak. You stretch out the sky like a curtain. You make the clouds your chariot. You walk on the wings of the wind. You use the winds as your messengers, thunder and lightning as your servants. You look at the earth, it trembles. You touch the hills, and they smoke. You laid the earth's foundations so that they would never be destroyed. You covered the land with ocean. The waters rose over the mountains. They fled at the sound of your voice. You thundered, and they ran away. They rushed down into the valleys to the place you appointed for them. You bounded them so that they would never return to inundate the earth. You send streams into the valleys, and they flow out among the hills. All the animals drink from them. The wild asses quench their thirst. Beside them the birds of the sky dwell, singing among the branches. You water the hills from the sky. By your care the whole earth is nourished. You make the grass grow for the cattle, and grains for the service of mankind, to bring forth food from the earth, and bread that strengthens the body, oil that makes the face shine, and wine that gladdens the heart. You plant the trees that grow tall, pines and cedars of Lebanon, where many birds build their nests, and the stork on the topmost branches. The mountains shelter the wild goats. The cliffs are a shelter for the rock squirrels. You created the moon to count months. The sun knows when it must set. You make darkness, it is night. The forest animals emerge. The young lions roar for their prey, seeking their food from God. The sun rises, they withdraw, and lie down together in their dens. Humans go out to their labor and work until it is evening. How manifold are your creatures, Lord! With wisdom you made them all. The whole earth is filled with your riches. Here is the sea in its vastness, where innumerable creatures live, fish both tiny and huge. Here sharks swim, and the whale that you created to play with. All these depend on you to give them food in due time. You open your hands, they gather it. You give it, they are filled with gladness. You hide your face, they are stricken. You take back their breath, they die and return their bodies to the dust. You send forth your breath, they are born, and with them you replenish the earth. Your grandeur will last forever. Eternally you rejoice in your works. I will sing to you every moment. I will praise you with every breath. May all selfishness disappear from me, and may you always shine from my heart.
Mm,
Mm.
beautiful.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hang on. I got to turn on some more light here. Hang on. Okay. So, how you like them potatoes? Pretty great, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so beautiful. Um, what I'm looking for, if you had to do the impossible task of summing up in one sentence or one or two sentences what this what this psalm is saying, how would you do that? How would you do that? This is your assignment today.
A God who is delighted with his creation and bringing it to the awareness of his creatures.
Mm. Yeah. Lovely. Delighted. I love that. Yeah. Not just okay. It was a
Here are the
big.
trees, here are the
Say,
birds.
say it again.
He didn't just say, there's trees, there's birds, there's,
Right.
but he you know, the adjectives, etc., that
Yeah. Yeah.
get the imagination going.
Yes, and of course the root of the word imagination is image. It makes us
Mhm.
see it, not
Yeah.
just some abstract idea of birds and trees, but we see them. This is what poetry does. This is what one of the things that's very magical about poetry is that way before people had TVs and video
Mhm.
zooms and all that, it made people see. Imagine that, sitting around the campfire in the desert and someone intones some words and you're seeing this stuff. Wow.
Yeah.
And my guess is that people in ancient cultures, before they had, TVs and movies and things, generally had stronger power of imaging, of imagining than we do.
Mhm.
Um, I remember, little kids, they would get toys, and to some degree, of course, they still do this. Um, you know, you'd get a good cardboard box, something would get delivered to the house, and you were 5, 6, 7 years old, and you'd play with that box, and that box would become a
Mhm.
fort and a castle and a train and a rocket ship and all of that. And then right around the time I was raising my kids, in the 80s and the 90s, they started coming out with the toys that were, it's like the story was already there. They were all okay. First, you'd see the cartoon on TV, or you'd see the movie, and it would be He-Man or it would be Wonder Woman or something. And here's the He-Man doll or the Wonder Woman doll. By the way, the greatest marketing ploy of all time was the guy who thought up the word action figure. The He-Man action figure. You know what action figure means? It means dolls for boys, right? But if we call them action figures, it still feels macho and it makes boys feel okay about playing with dolls,
Yeah.
right?
Oh.
So, um, so yeah, we see it and we feel it, and really, I think, Judy, you really just got the right word here. We feel the delight. On this 5 day retreat, we were at home retreat that we were just on last week with Rupert Spira. Um, Someone asked the question, um, why does the unmanifest appear as the manifest? Right? I'm not sure exactly what words they put it in, but it could be, we could say, why does the unmanifest express itself as the manifest? Or why does the infinite, which is express as the finite world? Why does, in Buddhist terms, um, it's always put in terms of form and emptiness, and there's always the equivalence of the two. In the Prajnaparamita Sutra, form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness. Emptiness is exactly form. So the emptiness, of course, to Western ears, emptiness sounds like, oh, it's flat, it's void. But of course, it's brim full of potential. And that's why it can express itself as all the infinite forms, right? But they never stop being one. Form is always emptiness. Emptiness is the infinite's always the finite. Finite's always the infinite. That's the sense that we get here, right? All of we're it's like we're getting a guided tour of the finite world, the manifest world. There's trees and there's fish and there's whales and there's birds right, and it's all the expression of God, and it's all the delight of God. So when this person asked Rupert the question, does why does the unmanifest bother to express as the manifest, so to speak? Why does infinite emptiness bother to manifest as finite form, which is so much more complicated, right? And Rupert's answer was, it's the overflowing of love, right? It's the
Mhm.
overflowing of love. And of course, that has to be understood in the context of our understanding, and certainly if you hang out with Rupert long enough and some other teachers, you'll hear them explain this, that love, when we say love, we're not just talking about some um, uh, emotion. Love is not just a feeling. Um, it's love is the infinite intimacy, the infinite non-separateness of well, anything and anything else. As we grow in enlightenment, basically it's the discovery that no wave is separate from the ocean, right? So no finite being is ever separate from God. And then that means that no wave is separate from any other wave, right? If it's, what's that called in math? Is that the commutative proper, right? If A equals B, if A equals C and B equals C, then A must equal B. So if I am God, if I am non-separate from God, if God is me, if you are God, God is you, you're non-separate from God, then you and I have to be non-separate from each other. The waves can't be, if all the waves are non-separate from the ocean, they have to be non-separate from each other. And that discovery, which continues to deepen over a lifetime, is that's love, the opening into that. So, yeah, that's what I'm getting from this. I love the line, where is it? I don't see it right now, but where he's talking about how oh yes, it's right at the bottom of the second page. Here is the sea in its vastness, where innumerable creatures live, fish both tiny and huge. Here sharks swim, and the whale that you created to play with. Wow. Wow. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you see the poetic imagination there. The whale, the biggest, the most fearsome thing in the seas, is a plaything, is an expression of delight. Let me make this toy and then I can play with this. This will be my little rubber ducky, says God, right? From the point of view of God, the whole universe is like that. That's just great. And the sense of everything happening in time and in proportion, right? There's a prayer from one of the Vedas, I think, that we used to hear this in my days with Maharishi, and just the one line that I remember was like, "May the rains come in time." And then there was something else, may the sun come in time. So it's this idea that the rains come on time, the sun, the right, everything is regulated, everything, the nothing is out of place. It's all the orderliness of the divine consciousness manifesting as the whole thing. If anything looks out of place to us, it's because we got to take a step further back. Sometimes a couple of steps, right, to see the big picture. Right? For that, for that, we go to the book of Job, right, which some of you know. Job is the good, upstanding man, the one virtuous man, and then all the most horrible possible things happen to him. Because God and Satan made a little bet. Right? Right? I mean, in a way, it's a horrible story. It's a horrible story. But it's so interesting because we, often in the Christian frame of reference, you think of, is this okay? I'm digressing. Is it okay if I just riff here for a little while? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to the text of the psalm. It all connects. We, especially in traditional Christian terms, we tend to think of God and Satan as eternal enemies, like sitting at far ends of the universe and just total enmity. But this one starts off with Satan, just walking up to God, and God says, "Hey, how you doing? Where you been? Where you been lately?" And Satan says, "I've been walking up and down in the earth." And God says, "Oh, really? What do you see there?" And he says, "I see not one good man, not one virtuous man." And God says, "Have you considered my servant Job?" So you see what happens there. God dimes him out, right? God drops the dime on Job. God puts the finger on him. Here's Satan, supposedly, infinite malice. And God says, "Oh, wait a minute, you missed this one." Right? And he says, "Look at him. He does nothing." God says, "Job does nothing but praise me day and night." And and Satan says, "Well, sure, because everything's going good for him. He's prosperous. He's got all these farms. He's got all these kids. He's got his health. That's easy. That's too easy. Of course he can praise God." He says, "Let me mess with him. Let me take stuff away, and then see if he praises you." So God says, "Okay." Right? Okay. And then one thing after terrible thing after another happens. All these servants come running in one after another to say, your barn burned down. Oh, your farm was destroyed. Oh, all your animals were knocked dead. Oh, your children were all killed. And just one horrible, and still Job praises God. And God says to Satan, "See, I told you." And Satan says, "Well, you made it too hard, because God had said, okay, take away all his stuff, but touch not his body. Don't mess with his health." And so now Satan says, "Well, you made the terms of the bet too hard. You didn't let me mess up his body." So God says, "Okay, mess up his body." Right? This is a story that generally raises more questions than it answers. So now Job just gets all the most horrible boils, and just everything horrible thing that can happen to his body happens. So he's sitting out in the ashes, and just finally he raises his voice to the heavens and basically says, "Why, God? Why is all this happening? I was good." And then, just about my favorite thing in the whole Bible, right? What happens, Judy? You know what happens. A voice out of the whirlwind. Wow. The poetic brilliance of that. The whirlwind arrives, and the voice comes out of the whirlwind, right? This, like, the force, the potency, the dynamism, and the voice comes out of it. And it's the longest speech in the whole Bible, right? It goes on for several pages. And he says, okay, smart guy. He said, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Can you tell me how many stars are in the sky? Can you tell me how many hairs there are in the fur of all the animals in the world? Can you, right?" Basically, he gives them just a picture of how huge the whole picture of the universe is. Right? He never directly answers the question. He never says, "Oh, well, this thing happened to you because," which is consistent with one of my favorite lines in the Bhagavad Gita, where it's about karma, because people are always trying to say, "Oh, that must be your karma. This bad thing happened. It must be your karma because you did that," or so on and so forth. But what it says in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the authoritative text on that, it says, "Unfathomable are the ways of karma." Right? Yeah, everything is orderly. Everything, people say everything happens for a reason. No, everything happens for an infinite chain of reasons that are way, way too subtle and complex to compute. right? Everything that happens, every moment of experience in the finite is like the sum total result of all these chains of cause and effect going all the way back to the Big Bang. You can never figure it all out. And that's sort of what God is saying here to Job. The whole picture is so big, it's so complex, it's so huge, and so beautiful, and so awful in the real sense of the word. Awful. It just makes you full of awe. It just makes you can't, if you start to see just a tiny portion of this huge picture, your jaw just drops and you realize whatever I'm trying to ask about it. Why am I suffering? Why this? Why that? The picture is just, he's just like blown away by the hugeness of the picture. And he says, okay, basically he says, I surrender. I surrender. And then he lives happily ever after. Then all his animals come back to life. He gets a new set of kids better than the old ones. You know, the ending is that actually Stephen Mitchell, our guy Stephen Mitchell, wrote a book. I recommend it. It's his translation and commentary on the book of Job. It's really eye-opening. And he points out, being a scholar of these things, that the evidence looks like that whole bit at the end where Job lives happily ever after in terms of the finite things. You know, he gets new kids, and that Mitchell points out the evidence, the linguistic evidence indicates that probably was added later. That was not probably in the original, that someone came along, they said, you know, no, we need to give
fix this.
Yeah, we need to fix this. We'll fix it in post, as they say in Hollywood. We need to give it a Hollywood ending, right? And because it would be really much more profound in what Mitchell says thinks was the original version, where in order for Job to see the infinite okayness of things, he doesn't need anything finite to change. I'll say that again. In order for Job to see the infinite okayness of things, he doesn't need anything in the finite to change. You know, and in a way that's sort of the essence of enlightenment. It doesn't mean you stop trying to change the finite. It doesn't mean you don't work for goals. It doesn't mean you don't try to do your bit as a good citizen to bring world peace and be a good, worker or student or husband or wife or whatever. But you don't do those things to make life okay. You don't do those things to find happiness. You do those things as an expression of okayness, which you're living moment by moment, no matter what's going on the outside. You do those things as an expression of happiness rather than a questing for happiness.
What a lesson for these times of the epidemic of
Yeah.
where everybody's dying.
Yeah. No, right, you are. But everybody's always dying.
Yeah, I know, but not all at once.
Not all at once. Not all at once. Yeah, but right. No, it's true. It's every one of us, of course, from the moment, we're born, the meter is ticking. Right. That's why in those religious paintings they have the memento mori, the skull or the whatever, to remind you, hey, the meter's ticking. You always have that part of your frame of reference. But the idea that the finite is the glory of the infinite, really, that's kind of what this psalm is saying. It's as Rupert says, it's the overflowing of love, the glory, the splendor. This word splendor, which has to do with, it's like, radiance. It's the radiance, the luminosity. We could even say that, Since the infinite is infinite potential, it's almost as if it has to play out. It has to. It's like it's so full, it has to overflow. We have to get all this stuff. And Mitchell, being very tuned into these things, starts with not Lord, as most translations will, because as we've spoken about previously, the moment you say Lord, you've got the anthropomorphic fallacy, right? Turning the infinite into something with a human form. You've got the patriarchal fallacy. You're turning it into a male because it's Lord and not lady. And you've got the hierarchical fallacy, right? You're turning the infinite into a sovereign, right? And of course there are places where poetically it's expressed that way. If all this stuff is happening, the universe is running on time. The day comes when it should come. The night comes when it should come. The young lions come out and roar for their food, and then they lie down together in the den at night. In a sense, it's all the expression of the power of God. It's all. So in that sense, we could say God is the Lord of that. But of course, the problem is that people start taking metaphors literally, and then think God is a big man and gets angry a lot, and then we're in trouble.
For good reason.
Right. So instead of Lord, what do we get? Unnameable God, which is really much closer to the spirit of the Yud He Vav He, which I assume is the word that's used here or alluded to. Adonai would be alluding to the Yud He Vav He, that what we hear is Jehovah, the unpronounceable, supposedly unutterable, the transcendent name of God. I have one of my harebrained theories, by the way. Those four letters. See, the thing is that in Hebrew, you only write down the consonants. The vowels are not written down, so it's oral tradition. You have to know what vowels, at least in biblical Hebrew, you had to fill in the vowels yourself. So that's one of the reasons supposedly no one knows how to pronounce that unpronounceable name. But so Yud He Vav He would be basically YHWH. So my harebrained theory is that the correct pronunciation is right, like it's the sound of mind being blown, right? Right, and that is, by the way, that's not far off from our, even in English, our word spirit, which comes from spiritus, which means wind or breath. That's why we breathe in, we breathe out, we inspire, we expire. Also expires when the breath leaves you forever, permanently. You die, you expire. Right. So there's all this, all this stuff. The spirit of the Lord moved upon the face of the waters. It's the wind, right? So this Yud He Vav He is like the breath of the universe, the life breath of the universe blowing through and enlivening, giving life to everything. I mean, to me, that's more powerful than Jehovah or Lord or unnameable God is pretty good. You are fathomless, right? No way to measure you, no way to describe you. All words, all attempts to to describe you are futile. I praise you with endless awe. That's appropriate. You are wrapped in light like a cloak. You stretch out the sky like a curtain. You make the clouds your chariot. You walk on the wings of the wind. You know, all this. So first we have like God in the sky, all these incredible, awe-inspiring, the clouds and the winds and the thunder and the lightning. And then a few lines later, we comes down to the earth. You look at the earth, it trembles. You touch the hills and they smoke. You laid the earth's foundations so that they would never be destroyed. You covered the land with ocean. So you see, we're getting all the elements. First, we get the sky element, the most abstract, right? The invisible, the intangible sky element, and then the wind, all the stuff starting to happen and churn within the sky. Then what do we get? The earth. Then we get the oceans upon the earth. And then the streams going into the valleys, right? This is a pretty good picture of creation, right? And then what happens? That creates biological life. All the animals drink from them, from the streams. The wild asses quench their thirst. So now we get animal life. Beside them the birds of the sky dwell, singing among the branches. You water the hills from the sky. By your care the whole earth is nourished. You make grass grow for the cattle and grains for the service of mankind. Now we get to mankind, humanity. Right? So it's like we're getting the whole creation process, the whole evolutionary process here. You make grass grow for the cattle and grains for the service of mankind, to bring forth food from the earth, and bread that strengthens the body, and oil that makes the face shine, and wine that gladdens the heart. You see that progression. We start with the most basic, we eat food, like other animals, right? But then we start getting into the stuff that other animals don't produce products. Right? They don't take olives and crush them into oil and then figure out cool things to do with the oil, like anoint your face with it, right? And wine that gladdens the heart. We can start finding ways to get high, to get happy, whether it's with substances or, whatever. You plant the trees that grow tall, pines and cedars of Lebanon. We were saying before how the words, strong poetry like this makes us see. Here it makes us smell, right? Notice the two specific species of tree that are mentioned are both highly aromatic. We know what pine smells like. We know what cedar smells like. That's not an accident. That's poetry. It's not just television, it's smell-o-vision. The mountains shelter the wild goats. The cliffs are a shelter for the rock squirrels. You all seen rock squirrels? We have them here in Santa Monica. If you walk along the Palisades, overlooking the beach, you see these squirrels that run around, and they don't go into the trees. They burrow into the ground. They're called ground squirrels or rock squirrels. And sometimes you see the tourists standing there going, whoa, what the heck are those? They're rock squirrels. You created the moon to count months. The sun knows when it must set. You make dark, right? Everything happening in time. It's all regulated. God is like the divine drummer. God does not miss a beat, right? He never drops the tempo. He or she. I'll show you the version of that from another tradition. Wait a minute. So here's Lord Shiva in one of his many aspects. And this is a version, more commonly you'll see Shiva doing this dance, this divine dance with one leg raised up. And he's in this circle of flames, because this is the whole cycle of creation and destruction. And that this fires, this divine energy, this radiant luminosity, the scintillating of the creative force of God that this psalm is all about. So here it's represented by this circle of flame, and within it God dances. It's all a dance, right? You see how this is using a different metaphor, the metaphor of dance, but very much in the same spirit as the psalm. In this case, this is a particular aspect. You see this pictured less often. This is the last step of the dance when he flies, when he levitates, when he becomes so carried away in his ecstatic dance that he rises from the ground. So this is the flying Shiva. Okay, but the other thing I wanted to point out is that in his right hand, that is his upper right hand, because he's got four hands, in his upper right hand, what he's holding there is a little drum. I forget the name. There's a name for this kind of drum. So that's the drum of creation. I said God is like the divine drummer. He never misses a beat. So boom, 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 you get creation, right? And then in his upper left hand, he's holding flame. So that's destruction. That's the end of the cycle of the universe. So creation and destruction. And then in the middle of the whole thing, here's this hand. Yeah, he's got one hand down here, which we'll talk about in a minute. Well, we'll talk about this now. You see he is on top of this little tiny figure, right? And people have sometimes said, why is he balanced on top of a baby? But that's not a baby. It's like a little gnome or troll or something. And what that represents is the smallness. That represents what we thought we were. That's the ego. That's the separate self. That's the eggshell. And in a sense, this is what we thought we were, and Lord Shiva is what we really are. We're hatching out of that little shell. He's doing his victory dance on top of it. Okay? He's doing his victory dance on top of it. But you still keep in contact with that. You still, even though in this enlightened state, you're no longer under the illusion that you're a small, finite, bounded thing. You know that you are non-separate from the ocean of creation or the fire of creation and destruction. You know that you and the infinite are not separate. You're it. You're an expression of it as much as everything else. You're not this little limited thing, but you still keep this little bit of contact with it. So you can still navigate through daily life. So from the outside, people still see you. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you can still speak coherent sentences, right? You drive a car, do the stuff that you need to do, right? You still maintain. You can hold your divine liquor, so to speak, right? But from the inside, what you're living is you're not that. You express through that, but you are not that. You are all of this. And the drumbeat of creation and the fire of dissolution or destruction is not just way, at the beginning of cosmic time and then way at the end of cosmic time. It's every moment. Right? Every moment of consciousness, we are, in a sense, we're creating the world through our perception, through our consciousness. And then we destroy that world And then we create the world of the next moment. You ever notice it's always now? You know, reach out your hand, touch a moment ago. You can't do it. Touch a moment from now, you can never do it. Oh, and the one other hand, the fourth hand, right, is in the what's called the Abaya Mudra. The Abaya Mudra, right? The palm up like this. This is a mudra is a hand gesture that means something, that conveys meaning. And what the Abaya Mudra is the gesture of peace. What this is saying is, be at peace, everything's cool. You're in the middle of flaming creation and destruction, right? You're being born, you're dying, you're everything's getting crazy. A new relationship starts because it's the beating of the drum of creation. The relationship comes to an end because it's the crackling of the fire of destruction. That's the same for your job, for your everything is getting created, getting destroyed. It's just a matter of when. And it's all the glory of God. It's all, as Mitchell translates it, I praise you with endless awe. It's all we can do, as Job does at the end of the book of Job. Right? Look at the very end of it. Your grandeur will last forever. Eternally you rejoice in your work. So again, this is, as you said, Judy, the delight of God. It's all the rejoicing. Even what looks to us horrible on the surface, right? If we're looking at it only from the individual level, oh no, I lost my job. Oh no, I have this illness now. Oh no, right? It just seems tragic. But if we can awaken to this bigger picture, it's all the dance. It's all the dance of Shiva. It's all the grandeur. Eternally you rejoice in your works. I will sing to you every moment. I will praise you with every breath. May all selfishness disappear from me, right? In other words, may I stop being caught in the illusion that I'm that little troll, that little gnome. May all selfishness, may all separate selfness, may all, belief in the ego and the fact that I can ever really be just a little ego zipped into a bag of skin that's separate from everything. May that dissolve. Because if that does, I want the selfishness to dissolve, not just so, I can be kind and to everyone, which is great, but because then I won't suffer. Because then I won't be caught in my small, narrow point of view. I'll have this cosmic point of view that we have here in Psalm 104. May all selfishness disappear from me, and may you, God, the divine, always shine from my heart. Right? That's the definition of enlightenment. May that happen. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Everything is infinitely okay. So may all beings swiftly realize the infinite okayness. May all beings, what do we got here? May all selfishness disappear from all beings, and may the luminosity of the divine radiance always shine from their hearts.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. We're gonna go run down to the beach and watch the sunset.
Oh.
The grandeur of God.